My dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, today we have entered the 13th ordinary Sunday of the year. For today's reflection, we are given the passage from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, verses 21 to 43, where we see Jairus' daughter and the woman with a hemorrhage are given for reflection. Come, let us study them. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed close at the sea. One of the synagogue officials named Jairus came forward. Seeing him, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, saying, "My daughter is at the point of death. Please come, lay your hands on her, that she may get well and live." So, as soon as Jesus hears this message from the officials of the synagogue, a named person, Jairus, and his daughter is ill, and now Jesus is moving towards Jairus' house. Now it is said he went off with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed upon him. So all around Jesus, people gathered and they were pressing towards him. Like in the present time, there is no any protocol. No security guards is going before Jesus and protecting from all the dangers like we have in the present our politicians do in India and abroad. Nothing like that. Jesus, just like any other human being, is just walking on the road. People are pressing towards him. He's not worried about his safety and security. In the modern world, lots of money, lots of our taxes are wasted on saving one particular person throughout the world, all the leaders. On their security, so much is poured out. But here, the Savior of the world, not bothered anything about his safety and security, walks one among the people without fear. And there was a woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years. A woman with a flow of blood, or we can call bleeding. She had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors and had spent all that she had. Yet she was not helped, but only grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. Now, there, the other side, we see a person named Jairus. Here we see a person, nameless woman. And both are marching towards Jesus with one thing common, that is faith. Here this person, Jairus, is requesting Jesus, "Please come, lay your hands on my daughter, that she may get well and live." With faith, a thing demanded. Now, this lady who had heard about Jesus and rushed towards Jesus and touched his cloak. Now, She said within herself, if I but touch his clothes, I shall be cured. Now, immediately her flow of blood dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Here, a thing is done by faith, but without the consent of Jesus. We can call it as a moral stealing from Jesus. Not the proper way, but faith tells it can be done. We can morally steal for our good when there is faith. That woman had a faith. She said to herself, not going to ask Jesus. It is not possible, because the sickness she had, according to the book of Leviticus, chapter 15, verses 25 to 30, calls that sickness, the bleeding of a woman, considered as impure. An impure person cannot move among the crowd. So, considering all this situation, she quietly thinking how her sickness can be cured. For that, she had the weapon of faith. Faith moved her. Though Jesus was surrounded by crowd, they were pressing towards Jesus. Jesus himself might have felt. Now the present generation leaders would have kept themselves near in an air-conditioned situation. But Jesus was not like that. He is one among the people, moving towards them freely and taking advantage of that particular situation. She moved and touched Jesus. Now, Jesus, the master of all things taking place, happenings on the earth, in and around, says, Jesus, aware at once that power had gone out from him, turned around in the crowd and asked, who has touched my clothes? Now, not the people, but his own disciples are answering. But his disciples said to him, you see how the crowd is pressing upon you, and yet you ask. They think that Jesus is foolish in asking that question. They are telling, yet you ask, who touched me? How foolish is it? They are telling. And he looked around to see who had done it. Jesus wants to know who that person moved with such a faith that without his consent wanted to steal the power from Jesus. And therefore, the woman, realizing that what had happened to her, approached in fear and trembling. She fell down before Jesus and told him the whole truth. Here we see Jairus also fell at the feet of Jesus. Here too we see the woman too fell at the feet of Jesus. And she is and approached Jesus, fell, and he said to her, Jesus is saying to her, seeing her faith, who has stolen her healing power. Jesus is not condemning her. Jesus is not telling her, how could you do that without my permission? But Jesus is appreciating her, looking into her heart and telling and encouraging her faith, telling to her, daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction. And Jesus is concerned about the status of woman in his time. He knows that what was her sickness. No one knows except the woman and herself. That woman knows that she has an impure sickness according to the society. She knows that it was not healed by any doctors on the earth. She had spent everything. The last resort, the last hope she had about a person she had not seen before who this person Jesus is. She had only a second-hand knowledge about him, not even first-hand knowledge, first-hand information. It is only second-hand information received from a third person. But her faith told her, if you move, if you go to that person, you will be healed. And therefore, Jesus making this opportunity tell to the whole world that your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction. Now, the person who had come to fetch Jesus to his hometown, now Jesus, some other message comes to him. While he was still speaking, people from the synagogue official's house arrived and said, your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher any longer? Disregarding the message that was reported, Jesus said to the synagogue official, do not afraid, just have faith. Now, having heard that one, Jesus would have said plainly to the person, yes, Jairus, I wanted to heal your daughter also, but what can we do? We could not reach because we did not have any means to reach your house immediately. We have to walk and go only. But unfortunately, I couldn't help you. You go your way, I go my way. Jesus would have said, no. Jesus knows the faith of that person, and he wants to consolidate and confirm and make that faith stronger. Jesus himself, before Jairus could tell anything to Jesus, Jesus is telling him, do not be afraid. I am there. Just have faith. He did not allow anyone to accompany him inside except Peter, James and John, the brother of James. Now we see Jesus has an inner group, just like in the present world where the prime minister or presidents have their own cabinet. They are their own inner group, the inner circle. And that inner circle of people Jesus takes, and when they arrived at the house of the synagogue official, he caught sight of the commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. So he went in and sat down. Now, seeing the commotion, Jesus is making a comment. Why this commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but asleep. Now, just like the disciples who underestimated Jesus, did not know who Jesus is fully, and they have not understood. They just raised the question to Jesus, who touched me? How can you ask Jesus? How can you ask us? They are telling. Now, similarly, the people, those who are gathered here, they ridiculed Jesus. Then Jesus put them all out. He took along the child's father and mother and those who were with him and entered the room where the child was. He took the child by the hand and said to her, Talitha kum, which means, little girl, I say to you, arise. The girl, a child of 12, rose immediately and walked around. At that they were utterly astonished. Those people who ridiculed them, Jesus, now are utterly astonished. They are totally astonished. They have nothing to justify their ridiculing or their laughing at Jesus. They have to surrender to Jesus. They were astonished, and he gave strict order that no one should know that this, and said that she would be given something to eat. My dear brothers and sisters, these two incidents, when we compare and contrast, there are lots of things to learn. First of all, we see Jesus, who is moving towards Jairus' house. His journey is interrupted by a person who wanted to get healed by Jesus through her faith. By whatever means, whatever problem might come, she knows that if she reveals her sickness, she will be stopped far from Jesus. Therefore, she conceals her sickness and marches towards Jesus through faith, and she is healed. And there is some lapse of time, because Jairus may be thinking in his mind, heart to heart, why this woman is coming now and disturbing before Jesus reaches my place. Certainly, when we are taking someone for our own work, when someone comes, naturally everyone feel, come some other time, now is the time or what, I want to take this person, I want to do it immediately. We don't understand the situation. But an African saying is there. When the Africans were in America as slaves, they sang a song. That song is like this. The opening verse goes like this. God may not come when you call, but He will be there right on time. He will be there right on time. When it has to be done, He will be there right on time. So Jesus was there right on time for that person also, because she had gone to various doctors with whom she tried her luck, but nothing worked out. Now the time has come that she has to be healed, because now the time has come for her to reveal her faith. How she could reveal her faith, that is revealed in a proper manner. And moreover, here we see a catastrophe comes while Jesus was going march towards the Jairus' house, because the workers come and tell, your daughter has died, why trouble the teacher any longer? They think that now Jesus coming is of no use. Just like the disciples just underestimated Jesus and raised to the question, who touched me? How can you ask Jesus? And just like the people who ridiculed Jesus. But any catastrophe, any problem, though the storms may be there, anything can be there, but when Jesus is there, like last week we saw, Jesus said, be calm, be quiet, everything can be, even the storms can be calmed, even the thunder can be quietened, but Jesus is there means with faith, when we approach Jesus, things can be done, mountains can be moved. And Jesus does it in a more magnificent manner. And in these two healings, we see that Jesus touches. When Jesus touches, healing takes place. When we have faith, Jesus comes towards us. And for Jesus to come towards us, we do not have any protocol, any formal approach. We can just move towards Jesus. With faith, we can move mountains. That's what Jesus said. If you say to the mountain, uproot and go and fall in the sea, it will fall, because faith can move mountains. Jesus has proved to each one of us, my dear brothers and sisters, how faith can work in us. And faith can work in us, but always not as we want. As the African American slaves sang, God may not come when you call, but He will be there right on time. Right on time, when our faith is fully ripened, God will do miracle in our lives. Just like Jesus touched the Jairus' daughter and she was healed, just like He touched the woman with the flow of blood and she was cured. And there is a similarity between their 12 years she suffered. This girl who is healed, she heals also 12 years. Therefore, when we compare and contrast and see, faith moves mountains. Faith brings success in the person who believes in Jesus. Amen.